Hey everyone, welcome to another My Life in Objects. So something a bit different in this episode, and this will probably appeal to anybody like me who is fascinated by, sounds strange, but fascinated by manuals for tech gear. And also, I don't know if this is such a big thing now. Most things, I think, you probably, where there is a large manual, you just have instructions to download it from the web. But back when I was first buying equipment, you got a nice manual with it, and this looks, well, it is virtually unused, and there's a story behind this. So many years ago, and I'm not too sure whether it was in the 90s or the 2000s, I bought a second-hand D-550 from Anderton's Music, and when I bought it from there, they said, "Oh, there's no manual with it from the previous owner, but we can, get you a manual for free. We can send off and ask Roland to send out a manual, and we'll just send it straight to you." So that's what they did. So I've got this sort of brand new D-550 manual. I still have my D-550, but for whatever reason, and I must have had some other programming information maybe at the time, I didn't really need to use this, and that's why it's not really been messed up. Now I still do have the D-550, but as I've said, I just love going through and looking at these sort of things. I think my first manual of this sort of thing I probably got was probably a manual for something like a Yamaha rack unit for a guitar, or maybe the manual for my Roland 626 drum machine. That would have been back in, I don't know, the end of the 80s probably, thinking about it. Yeah, wow, that's going back a bit. But I thought I'd just, bit of a nostalgic flip through, if like me, you like looking at manuals for equipment. And this has just a certain, look at it in terms of the fonts. There's this whole area interesting area on MIDI functions and patch functions. And of course with the D-550, if people aren't familiar with it, is a racked version of a D50 keyboard. So of course it does mean that you need to have your own MIDI keyboard to access it, or some other means. Like, if you have a guitar synthesizer which generates MIDI signals, you can then plug it into the D-550 and away you go. What I used to do is I actually gave it away to a friend many years ago. I had a JX3P keyboard, and I used to plug that in through MIDI, and I do have is it a Alesis Micron still? Yeah, Alesis Micron. So if I needed to fire up the D-550, I could plug that into it. It did actually, when I got it secondhand, it did come up with one of the sort of, there's a socket for like a card at the front where you can save your stuff externally. But at the time I bought this, I was just fascinated by the different types of synthesizer, and although I didn't go very far with it, I'd sort of had a list of synthesizers of different types that I would like. So this falls into the category of, I think they called it LA synthesis, which is to do with how it sort of generates these the sounds from these sort of tiny samples, from what I remember. But then you can manipulate the sounds, stack them, various other things. So there's a whole load of stuff in here about the different settings, the good old you know, attack, hold, delay, decay stuff on envelopes. But you can imagine programming this is a bit of a chore, because everything has to be done through this sort of front panel, which can seem quite restrictive. And I think it's the case at the time. It had so much, on-board pre-programmed sounds in it. There was virtually no need to really program it that much. Although I did used to dabble, particularly like stacking sounds at the time. And what's nice with the book, when it came, they basically, Roland sent out like the full package in a plastic bag that you'd usually get. So you get the parameter quick guide, which is pretty useful, which is pretty helpful when you're trying to just programming something through a front panel. And then the implementation guide, short little thing there to do with MIDI implementation, and then the edit map, so this sort of schematic, if you like, for the different parameters, edit functions, those sort of things. But even now, just looking at this, it brings a smile to my face. I was fascinated by these routines. The one that I really used to like and I never got hold of was what do they call it now? I'm just trying to think of the name of the keyboard. But I remember on the actual unit itself, I think it was embossed on there or painted on, it had all the sort of routings. It was an FM synthesizer, and I can't remember which particular one it was. Would it be something like, I'm thinking of the DX7, I think. Yeah, the DX7. And I always seem to remember that those had a sort of schematic on the actual synthesizer itself, which showed you all the different routings for the individual FM modules. So there we have it. Hopefully you've enjoyed that quick nostalgic look at the D-550 Owners Manual. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in a future video.